Hello everyone, today I've got for you a brand new temple of my own design. Just like Derketo herself, to whom it's dedicated, this temple is anachronistic, combining ideas from different times and places. But before we begin, make sure to hit the subscribe button as there's a lot more cool content coming, and once you're done here, check out the latest post on my Patreon page, expanding the topics I only mentioned in the video. I've found this really cool and unique location, a small hidden gorge with tiny pond inside. First thing I'm going to do is block the whole entrance with a simple line of foundations. I've chosen stone brick for its color, so that the outside wall will blend naturally with the cliff. To make this flat wall more interesting, I've created a small portico. Stars have pillar snap point located at the top, so I'm temporarily attaching them to the foundations to snap off center pillars. I'm doing this on two sides so that I end up with this nice offset double colonnade. Then I added another row of foundations so that the outer pillars aren't partially hanging in the air, and I placed Derketo's cat minion statue as the centerpiece in front of the trumeau. To finish decorating the entrance, I've used Turanian roofs to make a tiny pediment above the doors, then extended the columns up. The two innermost pillars support the pediment, the rest connect to the rocks above. The remaining part of the wall is still flat and boring, but in this case the most important thing is that it stands out. Large, even surface is not exactly natural, so I had to break it up a bit. I added some more foundations to split the area. This in conjunction with light and shadows will help to blend it into the mountainside. I've also created platform for the statues, making sure that at least some of the vertical surfaces are visible on the right side, while placing the statues halfway into the sand on the left to make it seem as if the whole front is being slowly covered by the shifting sands. On the inside, I also added a couple more foundations around the entrance to divide the otherwise flat surface of the wall. The inner door are from Turanian tile set, which I'm going to use inside. It will not replace the stone brick completely. I'm going to make the two work together to keep the whole building consistent, but make the interior contrast with the rough external wall. The middle part of the temple will be focused around the shallow pool. This makes sense to me as purification rituals are mandatory in basically every religion that ever existed, and they often included cleansing the body, in a literal sense. Entering sacred space requires one to be ritually pure, so the pool for cleansing rituals is located just beyond the entrance to the complex. If this sounds strange, consider that Catholics dip their hands in holy water and make sign of the cross when entering the church, and Christians in general are actually accepted into community through baptism, performed by either full or partial immersion in water or pouring it on the head, both of which are typical examples of purification rituals. A confession of sins, on the other hand, is also a form of purification, but has no physical element. From the design point of view, I want to achieve the shocking first impression. The outer wall is dull, surrounded by desert, then door opens and the weary pilgrim enters a lush oasis, a hidden paradise surrounded by the forsaken sands and death. I'm using the fence trick to snap some foundations below the water. If you want to learn more about it, click the link for the tutorial. I've chosen Aquilonian tiles for the underwater part so that it stands out more and doesn't blend with the surrounding tiles. Also, I just want to see how many different tile sets I'll be able to squeeze in this build while maintaining consistency. These two tile sets look well in this specific arrangement. White elements of the Aquilonian tiles make the pool stand out and enhance the light reflecting from the water's surface. The stone brick foundations, on the other hand, need some toning down. I've decided to snap some Turanian walls to them so that they fit the central area better. To do this, you'll need less building placement restrictions mod, as all the old glitches have been patched out as far as I know. I want the temple to be mostly open to the elements, so I've settled on a very old but commonly used design that's still often employed today, a quadrangle enclosed by a cloister. With some minor changes, of course. Usually this term is used for an inner courtyard of the building, but due to the limited space available in the gorge, I'll have to make separate buildings on each side. area around the purification basin is dominated by blue, so I've used this opportunity to add some color there and decided that on two sides the columns will be placed on the lower floor. To make the central area more interesting, I've earlier broken the symmetry a bit. Now the larger 4-tile wide stairs opposite the entrance clash with the established pattern of columns. This is a good thing, as I'll be able to use this gap to outline the stairway leading to the inner sanctuary. I'm using the stair trick again to place columns on the foundation's edges to create a slightly larger gaps here. This part of the temple will be the inner sanctuary. I want to make it grand and imposing, but also removed. To this end, I've already created one very soft barrier. The stairs have two pillars in front and are inset in the higher level. Notice how different they feel from the set on the other side of the purification pool. To enhance this effect, I'm going to leave a gap in the floor so that only 4 tiles connect to the inner sanctuary. The floor plan of the building itself is simple, alternating pattern of squares and triangles, to form a semi-circle around the far end of the gorge. I want to keep most of the rock face exposed. Consider this gorge a holy site, where some myth supposedly took place. The sanctuary should feel like it was built around it, sheltering the sacred place where a goddess once visited the earth. As for the roof, I've taken my inspiration from ancient Sumerian depictions of the gods. They are always portrayed wearing a multi-tiered crown of horns, so I'm going to replicate the basic shape of that headdress by making an alternating levels of flat and sloped roofs, to which I'll add fences as finishing touch. The flat parts of the roof are also helping with the stability, as I can easily connect pillars to them. I've chosen 4 tiles as the height of the sanctuary's walls, so that the cloister doesn't obscure it completely, but this decision meant that now I have this large, flat, boring wall. And even though this place is designed in a way that players without the ability to fly will see either the lower half or the upper part and the roof, I still want to hide it behind some columns. The gap between foundations is not a mistake. It is part of the soft division between the courtyard and sanctuary, and I have a plan for it that requires access to the ground. Even though this place is designed to be a public space for role players, I still want to make it a viable home, and for that I need some space. Good thing I've got some left on the sides. The stairs will also allow access to the upper level. To be honest, I kinda borrowed some ideas for this place from 21st century nightclub design. Just imagine dance floor where the purification pool is, and the upper level will be a VIP area. Well, Derketo is supposed to be at least in part a sex goddess, so I guess she would appreciate that. The door I'm using here is from Glass Constructions and More. Cool thing about it is that it fits right between the columns, but if you don't have access to this mod, that's okay too. Just place a regular door here and consider removing the pillar in front of it. I want to make it seem as if the buildings are partially carved into the mountainside, so I've only placed the exterior wall on the lower level. The second floor containing players' quarters should feel comfortable and luxurious, so it will have walls all around. The placement of internal walls is a compromise. I've sacrificed a bit of space to make the room's shape a little bit more regular. In addition, this room is also made with Turanian tiles for the floors, walls and ceiling. One reason is obvious. Unlike stone brick, they look nice and expensive. But also the walls are dark on the outside, mostly blue, and I need to take the attention away from this rather blocky and uninteresting structure. So I've made another colonnade which will help to blend the building behind it with the cliff. The bright columns pop out, while the dark walls fade in the shadows. To maintain consistency, I've built a roof in a similar fashion to the sanctuary, but on a smaller scale. The illusion I wanted to create here won't work yet, as there is this open space around the staircase which gives direct line of sight to the gorgeous walls. This is not a problem, rather an opportunity to add a hidden set of stairs leading to the roof. The gap between stone brick wall and terrain allows players to squeeze through, but it's actually really easy to miss due to similar colors and the uneven edge of the wall. Now let's move on to the other side. There's more area available here, but less headspace, so I've decided to make just a single room. The staircase is a bit different as well. I like to change things to make them interesting, and mimicking arrangement from the left side is impossible here anyway, due to the terrain shape. Also, small deviations from symmetry like this make the place more organic, which fits the theme well. This place should feel like an extension of the natural shape of the gorge. This is also the last major element of the temple. Now, it's time for details. Right, it's a temple, so obviously I'll need an altar. Actually, I'm going to make another one myself on the outside for role-playing and decoration, while the one that's required by the game will be hidden here, in the sanctuary. I've waited for the dark before placing the light. I've positioned it so that the feet of the statue are almost completely obscured by the shadows, while the sun held between goddess's horns shines brightly with the reflected light. The remaining space, well, I left it mostly empty. This is just a stage, a background for the role players to have fun, so I only placed some votive offerings around. Decorating large open space like this can be an intimidating task. To make it easier, I like to go from largest to smallest, even if it means that I have to go back to the same area a couple of times. Light sources are the only exception. Light makes or breaks the place, so I add them as needed. I started with the second altar. The statue of Derketo dominates the courtyard. Also, it's a major light source, so makes sense to place it first. Then, I started blending the stone brick and Turanian tile sets together with a simple fence snapped to the wall. I like it because it looks like a solid wall adorned with relief. Perfect for most areas that didn't merit fully decorated walls. And cost-cutting measures like this add a tiny bit of realism to the place. Oh, and again, this is possible only with the less building placement restrictions mod. Next on the list is enhancing the soft barrier between courtyard and the inner sanctum. First of all, it is extremely important division. Sacred spaces, crossing the barriers, and ritual purity all go hand in hand. The barriers often take physical form, although sometimes very limited. For example, the chancel arch, which is still a common sight in churches around the world. In this case, I've left the gap in the floor, forming a minimalistic moat around the sanctuary. I've left the ground visible, so that I could put some plants here. After all, this is meant to be a hidden oasis, and the trees will bring some much needed life to this place with their gently swaying leaves, organic shapes, and vibrant green color. The mods I'm using here are Deco FTW, Flora, and Emberlight. For the latter, I need to interact with the tree after it's placed to choose what kind it will be. Having 3 different tile sets here is cool, but I think it would be even better with 4, so I added arena fence to the mix. To keep the consistency, I'm trying to get at least a couple of objects of each color, so that nothing is truly unique and stands out. For example, the whites on Aquilonian tiles is matched by Cat's statue's mask. For that reason, I've added the bull statues. They mesh well with the arena fence. Also, they enhance the whole purification theme. Now there's a clear path from one stairs through the pool to the other stairs, and they guard it. With all those items placed, it becomes clear where lights are needed. I only placed a couple around the cloister to liven up the colors, while the outer parts of the temple ever so slightly fade to grey. The last detail I need to add to bring this place to life is actually people. So I designed a few different outfits to indicate various positions or roles within the temple. They share the same theme though, so there is some degree of uniformity. I've based them on the statue of Derketo, so the key features are hidden face and color palette dominated by black, with white and gold details. I've chosen to only use masks from the Derketo priestess set, as the armor is a bit too revealing for my taste. Don't get me wrong, I have no problem with nudity, I just find it boring, and I want my temple stuff to be anything but that. Desire is a product of imagination. Temptation is an unspoken promise, a mystery, a dream inspired not by what can be seen, but rather by everything that is implied to be hidden underneath the visible. longing gaze, charming smile, tantalizing sway of the hips at every step. Seduction is an art of innuendo and ambiguity. Nudity is the exact opposite. The NPCs are thespians from Pippi user and server management. If you want to learn more about them, click the link for a tutorial. The buildings on the sides are nothing special, just the usual gameplay stuff, respawn points and crafting stations. They are not really important here, as this is meant to be a stage for role players to enjoy. For that reason, I've placed only a few NPCs here and there. They're merely part of the background. If you're interested more in Derketo worship and ancient religions, check out my Patreon page, as I'll be posting about the ideas I only briefly mentioned in the video in the next couple of days. I'll let you guys know when there's something new on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more Conan Exiles content, check out the rest of my channel and hit the subscribe button, as there is still more cool stuff coming. Cheers!